So what do you think of when you think of surrealist art? Probably the strange dreamscapes that were painted by Salvador Dali or Rene Magritte. They use these hyper-realistic images to create imaginary worlds. Surrealist artists and writers explored the inner workings of the mind, pushing beyond its boundaries. The term automatism describes physical functions, such as breathing or dreaming, things that we really don't control. Our bodies just do it. Now, some artists look for ways to create their art in the same way, largely by chance and by processes they really didn't have a lot of control over. Max Ernst was one of the first ones to experiment with decalcomania. This was a technique where the paint would be applied to one surface and transferred onto another. And I'm going to just demonstrate that for you very quickly. I've got some black paint here. I've swirled it around, and now I'm going to press a piece of paper over it and lift a print. Now sometimes they would leave the image just as it is, kind of like an ink blot test, and sometimes they would just keep going, adding more paint and drawing into it, developing into something a little more recognizable. So today we're going to make a decalcomania print and develop into a surreal landscape using black glue. Now Blick has the perfect black glue that's going to give it the right consistency and tack for producing textures, kind of like the examples that you see here on the table with me. Other glues, including Blick white glue, may not produce the same results. This moody, luminous look relies on the randomness of texture. So if we were to use black paper as well, then the focus is going to be on the texture and not necessarily on contrast that would get with white paper. So this is a heavy mixed media paper. I recommend using heavy paper because otherwise you're going to have to deal with some wrinkling. Let's fold it in half and open it back up again. Now on one side, we'll generously squeeze out some of this black glue, like so. You can take a craft stick or you could use a brush if you wanted to, and we're just going to try and move that around the page. Now one of my favorite tools that I like to use is one of these shaper tools that has the rubber end to it. The idea really isn't to smooth out the glue, but to create these raised areas and low areas, kind of the hills and valleys, so that we get a variety of textures in there. Next, let's fold the paper back over and press it down like so, all over. As we lift up, you can see all of the great textures that were creative. They kind of resemble tree branches or butterfly feathers or frost, even just feathery foliage. If desired, you can always go and move the glue around a little bit more right here on the page, or if you don't have enough texture, you could add some more glue and just repeat the process. Allow it to dry fully before moving on to the next step. Depending on the thickness of the glue, a few hours might do the trick, or you might just need to come back to it the next day. If you're teaching this in a class especially, you might need to let it dry overnight. You could cut the page in half and then you'd have two separate prints, or you can just use the mirrored image like this. See how the texture has dried and it's left that pattern in there? Now let's add some color. Before we get started, dampen a paper towel and just have it ready, close at hand. I'm just dipping one in a little bit of water here. With Blick liquid watercolor, we're using the pearlescent colors, metallic colors as well, just because they show up really dramatically and boldly on these. Now you could use a brush as well, but I'm using these paint dauber bottles or marker bottles because it's really fun the way you can get stippled looks, or you can blend your colors together like this. All right, so once I've put some of this out, and I can always go back and fill in some more, I'm going to take my damp paper towel and I'm just going to sweep it over lightly over the top of this and bring back some of those textures. The paint is going to lift away in the raised areas, creating a contrast between the color and between the black glue, like so. If you wanted to, you could come back in and you could add more to this. I have an example right here I'd like to show you. I've added a little bit of black to the tree trunks in order to describe them more as a tree. I also put a couple little cardinals in the trees, and described a hill or perhaps a little bit of a landscape back here in the background. Now these prints are really fun to make, and if you'd like to learn more about the project or the materials that I've used here today, we have a PDF with complete instructions, all the materials, and more sample photos to look at. There are hundreds more ideas available at dickblick.com lesson plans.